Hello, my little cookies. I miss you all terribly. So hopefully we're going to do these lessons online until we get back to school, and I will try and make them as interesting as possible. But we are going into a very interesting section. It's history, and it relates to the San people. Please don't moan and groan, because I want to show you a little exercise just so that you can see history in perspective. Okay, there you can see my rock art painting, and you can see my settlers that arrive in the Cape. And then the question goes, what is history? You can see the San people, the Bushman people there. And then it goes, the event. So history is about the event that occurred. Okay, and then you look at where it happened. And then you gather evidence about things that have happened in history. And then you can start analyzing the whole happening, for want of a better word. Then you can see how we can do the San people and how they were original people of Southern Africa, and you can see the movement of the people down into South Africa, or into South Africa being the Europeans. From all the information that we've gathered from analyzing, we can reach a conclusion about an occurrence, and then we can sit back with all that information and we can see why it has happened. Now, I want to ask you something. We all enjoy watching crime detective stories, not so? So I just want to show you the relation between the two. If you ask, like we asked, what is history? I'm going to ask you, what is a detective? There you can see our detective there with his magnifying glass. Okay, he will arrive at the scene of a crime, which is the same as the historical event on the left-hand side. He will walk onto the crime scene, and the crime scene is the same of the questions that we ask, where it happened. Next thing he will do, he will collect evidence from the crime scene. And then you can see the two detectives are sitting there, and they put all the information onto a notice board so that they can work through everything that happened. And that's when they start analyzing what happened at the crime scene. There you can see they reach a conclusion just as they're about to close the case, and there's the criminal and he's in handcuffs, and then they ask why it happened. Now, if you look between the two, they are very, very, very similar, the two subjects. So history is not boring. It's very interesting. Some parts, I will admit, are more interesting than others, but we have to learn about the things that have happened in history. And by learning about what's happened in history, it will give us answers to the future so that we don't repeat our same mistakes. If you look at something like what we're going through now with the coronavirus, we can see I know there was a smallpox epidemic in 1713 that the European settlers brought to the Western Cape, and it decimated the Khoi population and the San population. Okay, we're going to go on to our next slide. South African history. Okay, this is what we're going to be learning about, and it's for the grade 5s, and we're going to be learning about the San people. And as I said, they were the earliest inhabitants in Southern Africa, and they were hunter-gatherers. This is who these people were. The next slide that we go on to, there's a video that's been posted. There's the link. I want you to watch that video. It was done by David Attenborough. I think he was knighted afterwards, so he was Sir David Attenborough. He was somebody that did a lot of documentaries about many things that occurred throughout the world. If you listen to his voice, it's somebody my age and maybe your parents' age. It's very recognizable. Okay, so after you watch the video, I want to go through the first people to live in South Africa were the San people. Okay, they occurred naturally in the Western Cape. They made tools out of stone, and they used the stone for hunting and for day-to-day life. Therefore, they lived in the Stone Age. We're going to go on to the ages and timelines after this, but this is just the beginning of what we're going to do. But I'm going to show you how everything fits into each other. The Sand people lived off the earth. Okay, they didn't have suitcases, they didn't have motor cars, they didn't have YouTube, they didn't have their dongles with them, they didn't have their cell phones with them. They were very, very basic, simple people that had very little impact in the destruction of the earth. Okay, they lived off the earth. They hunted the animals from the earth. They stored water from the earth. Everything that they did was a very simple, natural way of life. Okay, the Sand people were hunter-gatherers because they hunted the animals and they gathered foodstuffs that were growing naturally and collected water that were natural occurrences. Okay, they were nomadic. Nomadic means that they move around a lot. They never stay in one particular place. Like we are not nomadic. We have our house, we live there, we go to schools there, we hopefully work close to where we live. Everything is there, okay? And our shops, our churches, our businesses, our schools are all in that particular area. And we carry lots of baggage. Baggage as in the real sense of baggage. So if we wanted to move somewhere, we'd have to get a truck to move us. Okay, we were unlike the Sand people who traveled very, very light. Okay, let's go on to our next thing. I hope this becomes clearer. Okay, the new words that if you look in your textbook, you'll see the new words on Stone Age. And in the textbook, I think it's pages 89, that we start on the Sand people and the hunter-gatherers. Let me just check while I'm with you. Yes, it's on page 89 that we start. And then you see the hunter-gatherers and herders in South Africa. Okay, so the fact is that they existed during the Stone Age. So they were not cavemen, they were not in the Iron Age, they were in the Stone Age. So the tools that they used, which gives them that name of that time period, was the Stone Age. The environment is the next word that you learn, and it's the natural world around us. It's land, water, plants, air, and sea. It's things that occur naturally. It's not a palm tree. A palm tree is not natural. It's not indigenous to South Africa. Okay, it will be things like a buchu plant. It will be cactuses. It will be our acacias, our thorn trees that occur. These occur naturally in Southern Africa. The Sand people were also hunter-gatherers. They were people who hunted wild animals and collected wild food and plants to eat. They didn't collect and gather. They didn't store it unless it was water. They only used what they needed at that time. Okay, they were also quite simple people. They shared with one another. There wasn't a head honcho or a big chief or a big dude. Everybody shared with each other. Okay, they were nomadic people, which is what I explained before, is they move from place to place and they do not have a permanent home. And they will move depending on where food is and where water is. So that was what made them travel around. Okay. Okay, here's my bubble diagram. You can see in the middle, it's the Sand people. And you can see there they have hunting. Okay, another one from the Sand people was weapons. And then you can see medicine, tools, hunter-gatherers, groups, religion, and rock art. We all know that the Sand people were very famous for their rock art. It's part of our heritage as South Africans, and it's many things that we've collected over the period of time and that we've discovered over a period of time. If you see these branches going off from the Sand people, and the next slide, I'm going to ask you to do something, but I just want to explain this to you. When you go to the group of weapons, okay, the weapons included their bow and arrows. It included sharp rocks, and they needed these weapons to carve things, to be the spearheads, the tip of their spears that they dipped into poisons and helped kill their animals. Okay, so the weapons, most important is their bow and arrow that they used for hunting. Okay, then you can go on to the hunting side. You can see the hunting one as we go off to the left. They used bushman's poison. They used stone tools and they used their bow and arrows. Okay, to sharpen their bow and arrows, they would have used stone to sharpen the points of their spears and of what they used. Okay, then you see the next one, rock art. On the rock art, an extension of that is the life that they lived. That the Eland was a very, very, very important part to the Sand people. It was almost considered to be a god. If you look at the rock art paintings, there's many depictions of the Eland. Okay, and it was also a depiction of their life. You see hunting and what have you. Religion goes into the Eland, and their god was called a Kachin. Okay, then the Sand people, the next one is groups. They traveled in small groups and they moved around. Hunter-gatherers, you can see they in groups again. They were wild animals. The men hunted and the women collected roots, nuts, roots they got water from. They used to dig in dry riverbeds to deep enough till they found water. So everything was interrelated of what they did. Okay, another thing I want to ask you. You can see there's the Eland Bushman of the Eland, the Bushman paintings. There's the Bushman with his bow and arrow. That would have been one of his tools and would also have been a weapon. There you can see the quiver that's made there. That's the short, fat, little stumpy thing that all the arrows went into. If you look at those arrow tips closely, you can see they are all different types and makes and designs. There's some more rock art, okay, that had people in it. And this photograph now that I've shown you would have been a gathering of the Bushman people, probably for a religious ceremony. Okay, there you can see a Bushman lady, and she's holding a root or a tree stump, a bark. It would have been used for medicinal purposes. The Bushman people were very big on their medicines. There's a plant called the buchu plant, and it's a tea that helps with stomach cramps. They would clean their teeth with strips of bark. They would use poisonous plants to help hunt their animals. So everything that they did for a reason. Okay, I want you for your exercise now, for the continuation of this lesson, I want you to continue with that bubble map on the things that we touched on now on my previous bubble map. This you're going to have to look in your textbook, and you're going to have to research a little bit. For example, medicines. Okay, I didn't put that in. I didn't put plants as a branch off from the bubble map because plants were part of the medicines. You can name the different plants that were used. You can go onto YouTube, or you can go onto the internet and you can check which plants were used for different things. And on this bubble map, on the segment that I gave you from these bubbles, I want you to add on a minimum of 2 or 3 additional bubbles. So it's going to take a bit of time and research to complete that bubble. Okay, so there is your bubble diagram again. Okay, guys, so this is what your lesson is going to be today. And then I want you please to email me your bubble diagram that you've done. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.